Good morning and welcome to today's webinar covering New to 2018 Concrete Part 1. Today we will be covering tilt-up panels, the components that go with them, and then our drawings for our components. So we will be covering the workflow of adding in tilt-up panels, adding components, and then detailing those members and group members. And then we will come back and go over some more settings over the tilt-up panel. And then at the end, we will have time for questions and answers to be able to go over the questions and answers part of it. So if you want, save your questions till the end, and we can definitely go over those questions. Okay, to start out with the tilt-up panel, what I have done is I've come into my model. I was given a reference drawing, so I was able to bring in that reference drawing and then bring it into my model here. I placed it in here for my tilt-up panels. You'll notice it's calling out a 10-inch thick panel, and I'm going to have a height of 26 foot 10. So to go over the tilt-up panel, and a majority of the components that we will be covering today is going to be for a concrete license only. So the tilt-up panel member will be a concrete license only feature here. So if I come into here to my model drop-down member, and I've got add here, I can go to prompt for member type. You'll see with my concrete license in here that I have some added features here. If I come over here, I can go to my tilt-up panel member. So I can select it from there in my F2. Otherwise, I've also came in here and created a floating toolbar with some icons here that I can be able to run. So for the tilt-up panel, if I come into toolbar configuration, drop this down to model and member, I can scroll down towards the bottom here. And in my member types, I have my tilt-up panel here that I can be able to place the icon on my toolbar. So during this webinar, I will be using my floating toolbar, so I will be also showing where you can use the other commands, but just to show you guys that I do have the floating toolbar up here. So I'm going to go ahead, start out here with my workflow by putting in my tilt-up panel. So when I click this, it's going to have me pick my points. So in this case, since I have a reference drawing, I'm kind of in an ISO view here because I'll have my reference drawing point locator up here on my toolbar to be able to pick. You can also put in a tilt-up panel in an elevation view. You can put it in a plan view also. So the points that you are picking is going to be where the stick line or the bottom of the tilt-up panel is going to be. So I'm going to come here, pick my exact reference for this corner. Go ahead and pick this corner now. Okay, so now when my member edit window comes up, depending on the points you pick is going to be how your reference and your thickness is goes. So I'm going to go ahead and change my thickness here from the 1 foot to 10 inches for my thickness that my drawing called out. And now my next option down is my reference. So the points that I picked for my stick line, it's going to center that thickness on here with center. If I go ahead and change to interior, now you notice that it updates in the model while I'm still in the member edit window here to be able to show. If I change to exterior, it will put the exterior side of the wall on the point. So depending on the points that I have picked will depend on where that reference is at. So with being interior, since I picked from left to right, it's going to left to right will put the interior. If you've got the reference at the interior, it will put the interior side of the wall on the points that I picked. So knowing the interior and exterior is your left end is the first point you pick there. Hold that in your left hand, and then you have your interior part of the wall and your exterior part of the wall. Now, if I go from right to left or in a plan view from top to bottom, if I pick interior as my reference, what that means is you'll have the whole wall on the interior side or on the inside of the lines that you have picked. So with going through, I had hit OK. I had not changed my elevation here. So to comment here on my tilt-up panel is, along with this being a concrete license member, what we have done is the tilt-up panel is a group member so that when we add different things to it, we have our different drawings. So group member will have like reveals, it's going to have any openings in it, and then I'll have a member detail that will have all my reinforcement in it. So if I go ahead and double click on the wall now to edit it, it's going to come up with my group member edit window. So then what I can do is, if I need to edit the member portion of that, I can come up to my selection filter up top here, change it to members, and now when I go ahead and edit it, it will bring up my tilt-up panel edit window again. So I've got it at 10-inch thickness. I've got my interior here. We'll cover these more settings at the end to show what the different settings will do. I'm going to come down here into my left and right end settings. I've got a bottom end elevation, so that's going to be off of the 2 points that I picked down here at the bottom. So if I need to change what that is from the points that I picked, I can come in here and be able to change that. And then I have my height. So in the drawing, it called out as 26'10" in here, so I'll set that for both the left and the right end. So I'll change that. You can see that now it's modified it to my 26'10". One other thing here to show with inside the edit window that we'll cover is a setback. So a setback is going to be a material setback here. So if I go 2'0", a positive direction on either the left or the right side is going to shorten the wall. Negative will make it longer. So if I've got a 2 foot setback here for my wall, you will notice that it has set it in the 2 foot in here. And you can see I still have my stick line down there, but it set the material back the 2 foot. Go ahead and zero this out. The rest of the settings with inside the tilt-up panel we will cover later on for a workflow purpose. We'll just continue on adding in the tilt-up panels here. Okay, so next I'll go ahead and continue adding in my tilt-up panel. Go ahead and make sure all my values are correct here. It's retaining the values like other members within SDS2 here. I'll go ahead and model in my last tilt-up panel here. Okay, so now that I have my tilt-up panels in place here, I need to be able to add some different things, like the opening here for my door, openings here for windows, or maybe a garage door opening here, and then I have an irregular shape opening that I'll want to add. I want to add in, we'll continue adding in components of reveals. We also have some embed assemblies for the panel to footing and also panel to panel assembly here that we're going to add. So these are all components that will be added to the tilt-up panel member. So up on my toolbar, the first thing we're going to add is these openings here. So up on my toolbar, I've got some toolbar configurations here for my components. Any of the ones that you see with the orange puzzle piece will be my components. You can also go down here to your toolbar to be able to add components, and it will be specified there. If you do want to add any of these components to your toolbar, if I come down here to my toolbar configuration, come down to Model, Component, you can see that I've got my different features. So right here I've got Add Concrete Wall Opening, Add Void Space Layout, Add Reveal, Add Tilt-Up Panel Reinforcement. So all of those with the orange puzzle piece will be inside your model component. command group inside of your toolbar configuration. So now we are going to get into adding the components. So the first one I will add is my add concrete wall opening. Go ahead and select that. It's going to say to locate my member to add it to. I will select my wall here. With adding the wall opening component, you are going to go diagonally across your component, or across the opening. So when I do that, when it brings up my member edit window, it's going to come in with my width and height already specified. So my 7'4" height and then 4'9". You can go in and manually be able to change the heights if you need to modify the height or the width. And then you've got your cover here. So cover is when we go to add in our reinforcement settings for this option here. So I can add vertical, horizontal, or corner reinforcements. And if I have those checked on, over on my side here, I've got my different settings for vertical bar, horizontal bar, or corner bar here. So what I can do is I'll go ahead and hit OK here and just allow everything to be added. Okay, go ahead and hit OK here. And then you will see that it adds my opening here. And then it also adds in my reinforcements here. So I've got my vertical, horizontal, and my corner options here. So to show some of the dimensions in here, another tool that I can show is if I go to add construction line, what I can do is up here on my toolbar, I have rebar exact point. So if I need to add in construction lines, I can be able to add them in by picking my rebar points. And then next, I'm going to just do a corner out one here. Okay, so to go over my values here with the reinforcements, to be able to edit the component, you've got a couple different options. So if I've got my selection filter set to member, I can go ahead and edit my member here. Just like any other components added with inside of SDS2, now it is stored within inside of there. So if I come down here, you can see now that I have my concrete wall opening, my options, and then my rebar settings for everything here. Or another tool that you can use is if you go into your selection filter, at the bottom I have custom components. If I change my selection filter to custom components, now I can just double click on that wall opening to bring back up my concrete wall opening edit window. So a couple things here to cover. So with the vertical and horizontal bar, I have my bar extension here value. So I've got a 2-foot value. That's going to go from the edges of the opening with the cover. So if we've got 2 foot and 2 foot here, I go ahead and add back in construction lines here and here, and I go ahead and measure from there to there. You should have your value of 2 foot in the y-axis, so I was off on the plane measuring. So it's going to be measured out and measured up from the wall opening there. For the distance of your corner bar, it's going to be based off the center, so it will split that distance in half and be able to extend on both halves. So right now, if it's 2 foot, if I go to 4 foot, each section on both sides of this construction line would go to my 4 foot. So with that, if I want to, I can be able to turn off my different options. So if I want to maybe turn off the add vertical and horizontal, only have my corner reinforcement, I can come in here and I can specify maybe my size to be different. I've got my specifications and grade. Next, I've got number of bars. So this is going to be, if I'm looking at it in a elevation view, it will double it up from there going out at the angle that the corner bars are. So number of bars here, and then once I do that, I have distance between. So once I hit OK to this, now you can see that I've got my 2 bars and I've got 3-inch spacings here. I also have the option, so if I change that back to 1, if I come down here to rebar layers, at an elevation view, this will add rebar layers into, like having a interior, exterior mat or a center mat here. So I'll go ahead and hit 2 here, hit OK, and now if I rotate around to an ISO view, you can see that I've got the 2 corner bar reinforcements. The last option I want to point out here with inside the concrete wall opening is the Add Opening checkbox. So if you have a future wall opening that you need the reinforcements for, you can use the concrete wall opening tool, come in here and uncheck the Add Opening. And then what it will do is it will still add in the reinforcements so that you know where to place them within inside the wall and know where the opening is at for future wall openings there. So if I come in here in future or later need to add that wall opening back, I can just go ahead and check on the option to add opening, and it will add my opening back in here. Later on, when we add the component for our tilt-up panel reinforcements, you will notice that the wall opening component, that the tilt-up reinforcement will be able to recognize the opening and be able to set back the reinforcement there. Next, we'll come over here to this member. I'm going to go ahead and just add in this first window. I'll leave the settings all the same. It was remembered from the first opening that I put. Go ahead and hit OK. Here the difference is with this being a window, is you'll see that it adds all my corner reinforcements here. Over here, it does not have corner reinforcements at the bottom because it's at the bottom of the wall there. We will add our another wall opening here. So for the last case here, we have a irregular shape window. So what we would want to use is we would use the component that would be the void space layout. So when using void space layout, I have corner rounding options here to where if I need to round any of the corners there, and then depending on the points, how you pick your points. So if I go in a counterclockwise direction when picking points, my thickness positive will go into the screen if I pick counterclockwise. Negative will come out of the screen. If I go in a clockwise direction, then positive will come out of the screen and a negative will go into the screen. So I need to change this to a 10-inch thickness for the wall. Next, I have apply to. I've got all materials or just selected materials. So if maybe you have something in the wall already, or you have 2 different materials that you're making a cutout, you've got the option to be able to select different materials that are in there. Go ahead and hit OK here, and now you can see that it's created my void space layout option here. The one thing with void space layout is this is a component that is also on the steel side. So with that component being on the steel side, we do not add any sort of reinforcements with the void space layout. You get reinforcements with your concrete wall opening, but not with the void space layout. When you do go to add in our tilt-up reinforcement, the tilt-up reinforcement will see this opening, the void space layout, and recognize that to be able to set back the reinforcements. So I'm going to come back to this tilt-up panel here to show. So if I already have one created, we do have the option to be able to copy component. So I'm going to come back up here to my selection filter and change it back to custom components again. I'll go ahead and select this custom component, right click, and say copy component. It will ask me in my selection filter up here to locate member to copy it to, so I'm going to just copy it to this member. So then I can just copy the component over to my different members there. Next component that we are going to use here is we're going to add in the reveals. So I have my option up here, my toolbar component, to be able to add reveal. I'm going to come back up here, change my selection filter back to member. I'm going to select my first member here to be able to add my reveal to. When I go ahead and open that, or select the reveal to run, in my reveal edit window, I've got my options of exterior and interior. So same thing when adding in the tilt-up panel. Remember, grab the left end of that member, put it in your left hand. Exterior for the reveal will be on the outside of the wall. Interior will be closest to you if you've got the on the face closest to you if you've got the left end of the member in your left hand. Next, we've got a reveal type. So with the reveal type, you've got tapered here so that you can specify this. Otherwise, you can do a custom and have a diagram to where you can come draw the shape of the reveal that you want. In this webinar, we're going to leave it at tapered. So I've got my reveal width here, the 3 inches. So I've got 3 inches here. My depth is 3/4, and then I have a 45-degree angle here that I can control. Next, we go down to, we can have either horizontal reveals or vertical reveals, or we can have both here. So what I can do here is if I wanted to only have maybe horizontal reveals, I can come down here to my vertical reveals, be able to uncheck it to be able to not have my vertical reveals. I'll come in here for my horizontal reveal. We've got a start distance from left and an end distance from left. So you can see here, maybe I can show here of a 2 foot from both ends. Next, I have wrap edge. So this will go around the edge. I can be able to show that also here. Number of reveals. So you can see the pattern here. Maybe I want to go 3. Then I've got a distance from the bottom or from the stick line. I'm going to go up 8'0" in this case, and then I'll leave it as 4 foot spacing between the 3. So I'll go ahead and hit OK here. Now you can see that I've got I went 8 foot up to my first reveal and then my 4 foot spacing. I've got 2 foot in from the side here. Then if I come in here and do a construction line add material, you can see where this value is that 3 inches like we talked about. That's my 3/4 inch depth. And then if I do construction line add base off of and hover over this construction line, you can see up top here that is a 45-degree angle here placed on that. So with that, we had talked about editing component. I'm going to come in here and edit the member for my reveal. Got my different options here. The one thing I'll show is So instead of edge distance, I can come back in here and go 0. Go ahead and hit OK. Now it's going to go all the way to my edge. And then I wrapped the reveal around my edge here. So you can see with that option checked on to wrap around the edge, I have wrapped it around, and also I have it all the way to the end of my tilt-up panels here. I'll go ahead and add in another reveal to this panel. This time maybe I want to change up the spacing here. So maybe I want to go 8-foot spacing. And I'm going to 0 out the distance from start and from end. I'll go ahead and hit OK here. Select this member to add a reveal to. Maybe I want to change it up 12-foot 0 here with a 2-foot spacing. So you can see up 12-foot and then 2-foot spacing, just to show some different spacing options and starting options here. So now I've got my different options here that I can be able to place in for my reveals. Next component that we were going to go into now is going to be, not a component. We are going to go in and use a couple of tools here for adding embed assemblies. So I've got up here on my floating toolbar, I have an add panel to footing embed assembly and an add panel to panel embed assembly. So to be able to get those, I'm going to go to my options and then toolbar configuration. For my command group, I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom and go to concrete. So command group all the way to the bottom, concrete. And then I have my two options in here for add panel to footing embed assembly and add panel to panel embed assembly. So I've be able to use those. So to cover this real quick, we talked about up here on my floating toolbars that if I've got orange puzzle pieces, these are my components. So the components, when they're added to the member, I can either edit the member to be able to go in and modify that component, or I can change my selection filter to custom components to be able to double click on it to be able to edit the connection component to have it update with that. With these two tools here, the add panel to footing embed assembly and add panel to panel embed assembly, is what that's going to do is once I add it in here is the embeds that it adds in, whether it be plate or angle, once it's added in, they become their own miscellaneous members, and then it's no longer you will no longer have the edit window for all three of them together as we go through here and specify. So they will all be miscellaneous members once they're added in, just like if you watch the last webinar with embeds, we will be pulling from the embed schedule that is in your concrete options, concrete job setup, and then I have embed schedule. So I've got a list of embeds that have already been created. So I'm going to use those with this tool. So along with the previous webinar covering beams and joists with your embed schedule, these two tools will also be pulling from your embed schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and run the panel to footing embed assembly first. So I'll go ahead and pick that. It's going to ask me to pick my tilt-up panel. So I'll go ahead and select it. Now you can see that as I'm dragging along, it's going to show me a distance from both the left and the right end to be able to pick. And if you notice, when I go back and forth, I can add one in on the far side of the wall or the near side of the wall, depending on where my cursor is pointing at here. So I'm going to come in and pick this point from my reference drawing. So first thing is your panel to footing embed assembly. So I've got a panel bottom end setback. So what this is going to do is it will set your footing embed down a certain value from where your panel embed is. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to be a 1/2 inch. Next we have our panel embed type. So my embed type, I can do either plate or I can do angle. So for this one, I'm going to leave it as angle. Schedule piece mark, I can go ahead and browse to my list here and be able to pick one. I've already got M in here. Next, I have my length. So maybe instead of wanting this to be a 1 foot long piece, I can go ahead and change it to 8 inches. And then last option here for the panel embed is I've got long leg vertical. So if I've got an angle, different size, I can check that on to make sure that my long leg is rotated to the vertical position. So this will be the embed that's inside the panel. Next, I have my connecting embed. So the connecting embed will be what is attached from attaching the panel to the footing embed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a plate. And then I've created an embed EM5 here that's going to be just a regular plate. I can rotate that plate. If you are in an elevation view, a positive direction will rotate that plate in a counterclockwise according to the work point there. Next, I have my footing embed. So this will be in my footing. So in this case, with adding this in, I do not have to have a continuous footing modeled in already. I can just be able to add in this tool without the continuous footing, but that's what it would be doing here, is connecting the tilt-up panel to the continuous footing. I'll go ahead and drop this down to plate, and then I will pick my other option here for my plate that I want to use. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. And you can see that it's placed in I've got my embed here, my plate, and my plate. Now what I can do is it's going to allow me to pick multiple places on this one member that I have selected here. I'll go ahead and place right here. So now it's added it to both those members. I'll go ahead and select this member to be able to add it to. I'm going to come in here. We use the same thing. It remembers the stored values here. I'll go ahead and run this command again on this wall. Exit out. You can also be able to copy these embeds once you've placed them in. There'll be miscellaneous members that you can do member copy for. I'll just go ahead and select this last wall in here. Go ahead and finish it out. So to show here, a couple of things with this is I've got my selection filter set to member. If I go ahead and edit this, this will come up as just an embed plate member edit window that you could be able to change your schedule entry, your different values here for. So elevation, I've got it -0.5 because I put in that 1/2 inch setback. And then I also have my different rotations here. So if I come in here and surface, you can see that from this embed plate for inside the tilt-up panel, the panel embed, it's going to be 1/2 inch down is where I have my footing embed, and that was when we're adding it in. I had my the setback at the very top of the option there, so that's what that's going to control. But once they're placed in, they are just now each individual miscellaneous members. So one thing to show with that is once we've added these embeds, part of group member is, even though that's a miscellaneous member, if I change this back to default and select my group member, you'll notice that my assembly, or my panel to footing assembly, I've got my tilt-up panel embed is a part of the group member. So now when I go ahead and detail my group member, I can have dimensions, and I can also have it show up in table reports that have been created for that, for the group member there. Okay, so I have added in my panel to footing embed assembly. Another option that I have here is a panel to panel. So my next option here is add panel to panel embed assembly. I'll go ahead and select that. And I want to make sure that I am in, I'm going to go ahead and change my selection filter to members just to make sure. Go ahead and run this option, select my tilt up panel, and it's going to be the same thing as the panel to footing option here, to where I can go ahead and go front to back here. Depending on the point that I want to pick, I can place it either direction. So in this case, I've got my panel to panel embed assembly. So connection angle. So this is going to be of how they are connecting together. So how the supported panel, which is the one that I picked, would be connecting to the supporting panel, which would be in this case this panel. So the connection angle, if I'm at the corner, having a corner like a 90-degree corner, connection angle 90 degrees will have it will rotate. So if I've got both of these as plates, it will rotate that. So in this case, I'm going to just go 0 because it's just in a straight line here. I also have a flush option here of being able to have everything inside the wall, even the connecting embed plate. If I have that to flush, it will be inside the wall. I'll go ahead and check this because I want the connecting embed plate to be outside of the wall. So for my supporting embed panel, it's going to be on this side. I'm going to go ahead and choose plate. I'm going to leave it as EM1. I can rotate that plate around if I want to, and then also I have a setback here. So the setback is going to set the plate away from the edge here. So maybe if I go, I can just show it here. If I go 6 inches on that side. Next, I'm going to go for my connecting embed. I just want a plate. So for that plate, I'm going to go ahead and select EM6 here. Go ahead and hit OK. So just a plain plate. And then I'm going to go down and pick a plate for my supporting one and do the same EM1 here. So somehow I got rotation. I'm going to do a setback of 6 inches just on the left one just so that I can show it here. Go ahead and hit OK. And now I can go ahead and place it down if I want to add it in again. So what I'll do is go ahead and come in here and show you. So you can see from here to here, so from this distance to this distance is that 6-inch setback that I set on the embed there. So if I come in here and edit this member, I can see that I've got my different embed information options here to be able to see. I'll go ahead and come in and add in my other section here and zero out this field to have it placed correctly there to where you can be able to see that I have my studs in here for my embed into the wall. I also have a plain plate for being able to weld the two embeds together. You can also see in this view that I have studs and DBAs for this embed for the panel embed. So that would be using both the panel to footing and the panel to panel embed assembly. Remember that these are not components, that when they're added, once they're added, they just add in the miscellaneous member for the embeds. the last component that we are going to add to our tilt-up panels here is called our tilt-up panel reinforcement. So I have it up here in my toolbar. I also have it, if I've got my member selected for a tilt-up panel and I go to my component here, you will see tilt-up panel reinforcement. So I can be able to run it from there. So I'm going to go ahead and run my tilt-up panel reinforcement. I'm going to select that option. Okay, so go ahead and grab it here. So I've got a center mat option, interior or exterior face options to be able to add this to. And then I have horizontal and vertical strips that I can allow to be able to put in for my reinforcements. And then I'll have my different spacing options, which I'll go over here shortly. Let me go ahead and hit OK here to be able to show. You can see that it's added in my reinforcements. If I go ahead and look here, the reinforcements have gone around my concrete wall opening. Come back in here to my tilt-up panel. Go ahead and add in my tilt-up panel reinforcement to this member here. Maybe I just want to go a center mat on here and go ahead and hit OK. So what I can do is come in here, once I've added that reinforcement, maybe and look at this opening of saying, well, I want two bars here for my reinforcement on both sides for my verticals. And then maybe these verticals up here, instead of just the 3 here up top, I want 4 to be up top here to help out for reinforcement. So what I can do here is I'll go ahead and change my selection filter back to custom components. I can double click on my reinforcement here. And so this is where down here at the bottom will be where I have my different options for my spacing. So to show this here for my horizontal strips, I've got my different spacings. So, and then I also have my vertical. So horizontal and then my vertical. What these values here for the width values are is for the 6 foot, that's going to be your first section until it runs into something that makes the reinforcement have to be modified. So in this case, it's 6 foot over until it hits this wall opening, and then it's showing that it has to be adjusted. So that 6 foot section, you'll have a line. I've got a 4 foot, which is the width of the opening here, so 4 foot, and then the rest, that 14 foot 11 and 5/8 would be from the opening all the way to the end of the tilt-up panel. So in this case, so if I want to add in a second bar here for reinforcement, I can come into my width section here of 6 foot, my first one, and I'll come down here and I have left edge count with spacing and a right edge count with spacing. So this would be the right end or right edge of my 6 foot section. So in here, I'll come in here and for a count, I'm going to go ahead and type in 2 to be able to have 2 reinforcements here, and they will be spaced 3 inches apart. Next, I want to be able to add in a second one on this side of the opening also. So for the 14 foot 11 and 5/8 section, that is going to be actually on the left side. So I'll come here to the left count edge and be able to set it to 2 here, and I've got 3 inch spacing between the two. So if I go ahead and hit OK, now you'll notice is it added in my 2 different ones here with the 3 inch spacing. Now we talked about being able to have 4 instead of 3 up top here. So I'll go ahead and edit this again. And so in this 4-foot section for my vertical strips, instead of doing max spacing at 1'6", so it's all of these are going 1'6" for my max spacing, I can do an exact spacing if I had it calculated out for the exact spacing. Otherwise, I can just do an exact count. So in that 4-foot section, I'm going to zero out my spacing and then just say that I want 4. So with the exact count in that 4-foot section, it will calculate the spacing it needs to be to add in my 4 bars here. So I'll go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 for my reinforcements. So that is the way that you can control your vertical and horizontal strips to be able to add in, if you need to add in extra reinforcements, maybe around an opening, there you can add them in. So next I'll come over here, finish out. I'm going to go ahead and change my selection filter back to members and select my tilt-up panel. Add my reinforcements, maybe just say center. Go ahead and hit OK here. Again, it notices my opening. And then I'll go ahead and just do my last option here. Go ahead and do center mat. Go ahead and hit OK. And so now we have all of our reinforcements in here. We have our wall openings that we added with reinforcements. We added our void space layout that does not have reinforcements. And then we also added our panel to footing embed assemblies. And then also our panel to panel embed assemblies. Remember that the panel to panel and the panel to footing are not components. They are just a tool that you can use to add in from the embed schedule entry. So next, what we will cover here is going into our drawings. So again, we talked about it, is I've got group members and I've got members. So I'm going to come in here and I'll go ahead and detail my group members. So I've got my 4 group members here. With this, with tilt-up panels, with being able to get dimensions and callouts and everything, we have worked to use templates to be able to give you great results off of that. So when you are detailing your tilt-up panel members and group members, go ahead and use the templates to be able to detail those. I'll go ahead and click OK to this. And then let me go ahead and next we will go ahead and detail members. With detailing the members, since they are part of a group member, I would have to come over here and check on my submembers box to be able to show them, and they will be called out your P's here. Let me go back into my settings, detail with templates, click OK and OK here. Okay, and now we can pull up Drawing Editor here to be able to show. Here is some group member details here to be able to see. I've got my dimensions for my reveals. It's calling out my 3/4 inch reveal. I have my opening. I have my embed shown here, so I've got my values here. Next, I can come in here. So if I open up details, I would check on sub members to be able to see the members that I detailed that were part of my group member. I can come in here and see within inside of my tilt up panel member is going to be my reinforcement. So it's going to call out my rebar items here. I just have a single item here, and then it also has my rebar runs that it will be able to call out here for my tilt up panel member details. So next what we will do is go ahead and place them onto sheets. So I'm going to come up here, go ahead and open. I'm going to create a new detail sheet. Call this one 1. So we have created a couple of sheet outlines here with some tables on them with reports in it. If you guys would like these reports, go ahead and you can contact us at the support department, or you can also contact your sales rep or contact the concrete sales rep, David Zapka. You come in here, and for my group member, I'm going to just use a sheet outline here that's got some tables for the group member. So I've got some tables over here. Let me go ahead and do a sheet item add. I have my option down here for sheet item add. I'm going to go ahead and grab my group member here, place it on my sheet. And now, once it's placed on here, if I go ahead and click the Save button, it will auto-populate these tables over here that we've created with the reports. So this is where I was talking to you guys about it. We have created these table reports where if you have any questions about them, you can contact the support department about these table reports here. But you can see for my group member detail here, I've got a table here set up, so it's calling out my piece mark, my thickness, I've got my volume and my weights. Then I also have the rustication required. So for my reveals here, I've got 3-inch, 3/4 by 3 for my reveals, and then it's going to give me the total linear length, or the total length of the reveals here. And then last, it will show my embeds required. So for my group member, we talked about it's going to show openings, reveals, your tilt up, or sorry, your embeds. So I've got my 2 embeds down here. It's going to call out my piece marks and my size and my length here. And then we'll go ahead and create another sheet outline here. I'll call this R1 for my member detail to show the reinforcement. And I'm going to pick this tilt up reinforcement sheet outline, go ahead and do a sheet item add. I've got to click my sub members again for those tilt up panel member. Go ahead and pick this option here. Maybe change the scale for it to fit. Once I've got it on here, again, I can go ahead and hit the Save Disk button. Once you save that drawing, it's going to populate this table over here that we have for the reinforcement. So it's going to call out the quantity here, whether it's straight or not, the bar size, and then also the length. And then it's got a total weight for all of the rebar. So that covers the workflow of going from adding in the members, adding in the different components, and then being able to detail the members and the group members, and then being able to place them on sheets that would have some table reports to be able to get the information that you would need. So with that being said, at the beginning of the webinar, I had mentioned that we were going to go in a workflow, and then at the end we would come back to cover a couple of settings that I skipped over in the tilt-up panel edit window. I'll come back in here, and I will go ahead and add my tilt-up panel. Go from here to here. Okay, so coming here, we had talked about, so a bottom setback is just going to be able to raise the material from the work points that I selected at the elevation I was at. Next, I have a lean out angle. So you can see here the lean out angle. So when you're looking at it from the left end, if you're looking at down the thickness of it, like this image right here, a positive direction will go clockwise and a negative will go counterclockwise. So if I go minus 15, I can go ahead and hit OK here. Now when I snap to it, you can see that I do have a lean out option here to be able to lean that piece out. Let me change my selection filter back to member to be able to edit this. Let me go ahead and zero this out. You can see it will just bring my wall straight back up. Okay, I'm going to turn off my reference drawing just so that it's not in the background. Delete some construction lines here. Okay, so I'm going to come back in here, and next we're going to talk about peak heights. So if you see over here, it's talking about being able to set up different heights of the top of the wall. So let's say my peak height right now, I've got a 10-foot wall here for my height. Maybe I want to go up to 14 foot in the middle. So if I go 14 foot for peak height, and then I've got a peak offset which will pull from the left end. So my measurement will pull from the left end. So this is a 20-foot long wall, so maybe I want it centered, so I'll go ahead and put 10 foot in here. I'll go ahead and click OK. Now you can see that it went over 10 foot, and at the 10-foot mark it went up to the 14. So with specifying those two 14 foot and 10 foot, that's going to place a point here. So maybe I don't want a point, maybe I want maybe a square shape up top there. What I can do is be able to add in a comma here to be able to change my values. So with that being said, what I can do is type in my different lengths, all pulling from the left side of the wall there. So for right now, I want to go my peak offset 10 foot, so it's going to go over 10 foot and be at a 10-foot elevation. So I'll go ahead and add in a comma, and next I want to move up to a 14-foot elevation. So to make it go straight up and down, which will show once it's added in here, is I'm going to do a comma, and at my 10-foot in, so I'm going to go flat 10-foot elevation, 10 foot in, and then also at my 10-foot mark, now I'm going to go up to a 14-foot elevation. I'm going to add in another, I'll add in another 14 foot to make it square up top. And at that case, maybe I want this just to be 4 foot long. So at that case, it's always pulling from the left end, so I'm going to have to put in my 14-foot zero. And then I'll come in here and put it back to a 10-foot elevation at my 14 foot. So come back in here. I'll go ahead and snap to surface here. Okay, so now you can see, if I pull back up my edit window here, make sure to do member instead of group member here. You'll notice that, so to explain this is each one of these values is a point. So 10 foot and 10 foot. So I went over 10 foot for the offset and then 10 foot for a height. Then pulling from the left end again, I came over 10 foot over from the left end, and this time I did 14 foot for my height. Then I did a 14 foot over from the left end again, and at my 14-foot elevation, and then 14 foot over from the left end again for my 10-foot 10-foot elevation there. So you can be able to control, put in multiple points. So just think of it as each one of these are points that you're locating from the left and bottom end. Maybe I don't want a square in here. Maybe I want a radius here. So I've got my peak radii. So I've got 4 different areas here, so think of those as the same points. So point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. So maybe I want my top 2 corners up here to have a radius. So if I come in here and go 2 foot 0 for the second point, which the second point would be right up here, my third point would be right up here. So then I'll just go ahead and add 2 foot in here. I could go ahead and hit OK. And now you can see that I have my rounded corners here to be able to go. And it's not, you could have several different squares here if you needed like a facade up at the top of the tilt-up panel, to where you can have multiples in there. Next thing we will talk about is in our left end and right end settings, we have a return length option here. So first to cover it is in just a regular non-lean out panel is maybe I want to go 2 foot for my return length. So if I tab through it, it automatically will fill out that value. I can modify it. So to think about this here for the return angle is going to be, if I'm looking at it from a plan view, it's going to be positive will go in the counterclockwise, and a negative will go in the clockwise. So I'm going to change this to a 90 degree here. We'll go ahead and just hit OK. So now if I come up here to be able to show that this was my tilt-up panel, it came out. So this is my left end. It came out my 2 foot here. The one thing to show here is depending on what your reference location is depending on how much it builds out here for my for the thickness of my wall. So right now I've got it centered. So that's why it comes to the center of the work point that I picked for my member end here. If I go ahead and click interior, since it's putting the interior part of the wall here, then on the return, it will extend it the thickness to make sure that the interior of the wall will be there. If I go ahead and show exterior, it's going to put the exterior portion of the wall on the stick line that I put, therefore putting the return, keeping that to where the exterior part of the return is also on that value there. Okay, so also going to show here with the return is go ahead and I'm going to put in a lean out option here. Okay, so now with my tilt up, to show this better because that's my so from here I've got my 2 foot over to this value. So if I go ahead and measure out from my stick line, over is going to be where my return is pulled from. So this is 2 foot value there. Also going along the option here is going to be my 2 foot. So if I needed it on a leaned out tilt up panel, if I needed this to be all the way, the top all the way over to the top here, what I can do is measure that out 4'8" 1/8. So I can come back in here and type in my 4'8" 1/8 here. Go ahead and click OK. Now you will see that with my lean out, I do have the option to be able to extend the top out to be able to return into maybe another tilt-up panel option there.